Well, you're right, guys. Hope you're all okay out there. Today, back upstairs in the food studio, as I call it, doing a bit of cooking. And this is a vegetable pasty, as requested by Susan, one of my viewers. I'll tell you what, Susan, I'm so glad you asked for this because it turned out lush. As you may know, I like the wing it type recipes, and this is no exception. All the veggies at the front are going in. The cornflour, soy and the veggie stock pot at the top right there are for the gravy, and the flour, salt, water and butter is for the pastry. The pastry is probably the only thing you want to really try and get right. The rest of it, play by ear. So here we go. Okay then, so we'll start with a pastry, and anybody who's watched any of the versions of Bake Off will know that pastry needs to be cold. So this is 500 grams of bread flour, teaspoon of salt and a block of butter. Now what I've done is a third of the block is chilled and 2/3 of the block has been frozen, and you'll see why in a second. So we cubed the third, the chilled third. No need to really sieve the flour and salt together. Oh, you'll notice that I measured the salt off the bowl. Didn't want to spill it in the flour. Yeah, no need to sieve it these days. There's no nasty little bits in it, and we're not making some fancy sponge. So just cube the butter, the chilled butter, and mix it in. It's surprising how quickly that chilled butter warms up. I mean, that's only been out of the fridge for 5 minutes, and it's already going soft. So you need to work pretty quick, guys. So just rub the cubes into the flour and salt. We're after a sort of breadcrumby type consistency, but nothing too exact because we're making a puff pastry. Now, there's 3 types of puff pastry. There's your fancy puff pastry that takes about 3 hours. There's your rough puff, where you roll butter into your dough. And there's the one I'm doing, which is called a Cheats rough puff. Good tip there, shake the bowl and any lumps of butter will come to the surface. The heavier stuff rises. Get some ice cold water in. I used about 10 or 12 tablespoons with that 500 grams of flour. It all depends on your flour. There's no good me saying use 10 tablespoons because it could be dry as a bone or soggy as you like. So mix it all in with a fork to start off with. You'll know it's right because it'll be sticking to the fork. And then it is time to get your fingers in. And at this stage it's like a shaggy dough, and the idea of this Cheats rough puff is you make basically a short crust pastry, and then you add the butter as well. So when you're happy, tip it all out, roll it together and make a ball. If you're going to carry on with this tomorrow, you can leave it in the fridge overnight, but I just carried on working it. Believe me, it will come together eventually. Then it's time to start rolling. Flour your work surface, stop it sticking. I do like my little stainless steel work surface. If I used it on the table, it would be sticking everywhere. Anyway, flour the rolling pin and roll it out into a rectangle. It's quite thick, and I think my dough is a little dry, I must admit. Okay then, not the most even rectangle in the world, but it doesn't matter, you'll see in a minute. And this is where the Cheats rough puff bit comes in. We're grating the frozen butter over the dough. I froze about 2/3 of the block of butter, what's 160 odd grams, something like that. So there will be a few foldings. I grate it all over, spread it around a little bit. Get it fairly even. I mean, this is rough puff at its roughest. And fold the bottom third up and the top third down. There we go. Turn it round a bit and roll it out. And same again, grate the frozen butter over 2/3 of the dough. Good tip for you, if the butter's all slippery in your fingers, just chuck the cube of butter in some flour and it'll be grippable. Fold the bottom third up and the top third down. Roll it out again and do it again for a third time. I was working quite quickly, but if you think your dough's getting a bit warm, just chuck it in the fridge for half an hour. And when you finish, wrap it in cling film, and then it does go in the fridge for half an hour, even overnight if you want to carry on the next day. Well, I'm carrying on the same day, so it's time to get everything else ready. I often find that vegetable pasties are a little bit dry on the inside, so I'm making a gravy to go in. So all I'm doing is adding a stock pot to 200 ml of water. Normally they go to 500 ml to make a gravy, but I want to make solid gravy. And to get the gravy to set properly, I'm using the cornflour slurry. Now, I can't remember the exact quantities I used here, but I think it was something like 10 tablespoons to 20 ml of water. But just play it by ear. When it's thick enough, pour it in. Give it a good stirring, and what I did, I added some soy sauce. 2 reasons. First of all, for the taste of the soy sauce, and secondly, for a little bit of salt. And that was 1.5 tablespoons. Now, confession time, guys. After this had set, I tasted it. I did not like the taste. I used a herb infusion stock pot instead of a vegetable stock pot. It just wasn't right. So I binned it and I used a vegetable stock pot, exactly the same, with some cornflour slurry and the soy sauce. And you'll notice the colour's totally different at the end. I'm putting mushrooms in my vegetable pasty. It needs something apart from, well, root vegetables really. Now what I'm doing different to the norm is I am going to fry these. I've seen a lot of recipes where they put the mushrooms in sliced as they are there. But what this tends to do is they exude their moisture inside the pasty and it's a bit soggy. And I've seen other recipes where they mix the sliced mushrooms with salt for about 4 or 5 hours and the mushrooms give up their moisture. But when I've done that, I've never been able to get rid of the salt taste out of the mushrooms. So I'm frying mine, or is it sautéing? I don't know. In the pan, minimal stirring, and when all the steam has died down, and before the mushrooms start going brown, that's time to turn them off. Perfect. They're about what? They're about half the size they were, I suppose. Okay then, so on with chopping the vegetables. Now here, the world truly is your oyster. You can put whatever you want in, whatever's in the fridge. But what I do is I cut my vegetables into, not cubes, a lot of recipes say centimetre cubes. What I cut them into is half or third cubes. I mean, it sounds silly, but they're little tiny rectangles. Hopefully you'll see it on the Swede there. There we are, look, little tiny pieces. And because they're not cubes, what this does, it allows the veggies to lie flatter in the pasty. Something I learnt from the Dooney's bunch in Plymouth. Probably my favourite pasty of all time, actually. I'd say that Swede, carrot, potato and onion are probably your staples to go in a pasty. But I've put in leek, spring onion, greens, a bit of broccoli. You can put whatever you want in. Sweet corn, that's another one, yeah. I've seen Hugh Furley Whittingstall put stew in a pasty, which has given me a great idea for my next one, which will be bubble and squeak pasty, but that's in the future. Concentrate on the now. I was quite happy with the vegetables in this pasty because the potato, carrot, Swede and onion are all mine. Sadly the broccoli I had to buy. Oh, the peas are mine as well, out the freezer. Little drop of milk and an egg, make up an egg wash for glazing the pasties. You can use just milk if you want. Okay then, time to start building. Pastry out of the fridge, dust the work surface and the pastry. And what I'm doing, I'm making 2 versions of my pasties. One for kids and one for adults. I know a couple of my grandkids don't like peas or mushrooms. Okay then, so time to start work. Cold pastry's not easy to get going, but once it gets going, it flies along. You want it about, now I'd say about half a centimetre thick. Look at those layers, lovely. A little bit of butter on the outside, doesn't matter, just put a bit of flour on it if it sticks to your rolling pin. And I used a 20 centimetre plate. That's 8 inches, Barry, 8 inches, buddy. 20 centimetre plate. You can obviously use a bigger plate for mega pasties, but I found that the 500 grams of flour gave me 5 pasties with this 20 centimetre plate, so pretty good, not bad. Mind you, the vegetables gave me enough for about 10 pasties. I made far too much. Load the pastry up with the vegetables of your choice. Some people do it in layers with potato, swede, carrot, onion or whatever. Mine are all mixed together. Keep it to one side of the centre if you can. It doesn't really matter, but it just helps with the folding. And here's the gravy. Notice it's a different colour. Nicely jellified. Going to add a bit of steam to the inside and a lovely bit of flavour. Couple of knobs of butter. And then fold the pasty. And you'll see this bit at the end. And the same with the adult version. I just added extra mushrooms and peas with this one. Moisten the edge of the pasty with the egg wash. Not too much, it won't stick if it's too wet. And fold it over. Use your fingers to keep the veggies inside. Press down around the outside of the semicircle. And start crimping. Now I'm not a black belt at crimping, but it was adequate. Here we go then. Fold it over your thumb and press down over your thumb and press down, fold it over your thumb and press down, fold it over your thumb and press down, and keep going to the end. I expect there are some pasty crimpers out there shuddering in their grave. Well, it did for me. Quick brush with egg wash, couple of holes in the top to let the steam out, and in the oven, and these were 45 minutes. I'd say 40 to 50 minutes for this size, but take them out when they're nice and brown. Put that back. Yeah, right, here we go then. Whoa. Look at that, it's cooked. Gosh. Hang on. Oh, that smells lovely. I'll tell you what, it smells like a stew. Bit of sweet, lovely, cooked. I'll try the pastry, Yeah. It's got layers, that's for sure. Yeah. Yeah, so that worked. Happy with that. So, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to just take a little bit off the end because I'm going to have this at my supper. That is Gert Lush. I'm liking that. Yep, that's definitely in my recipe list for the future. Well, that is one nice pasty. Lovely layers in the pastry as well, look. I'm liking that. Yep, that's definitely in my recipe list for the future. Take care, guys.